Alright, for today's critical thought, I want to return to the topic of Metroidvania design. I'm recording this earlier in the day, hence why you're seeing the sun back there, just because I want to get this out while I'm still thinking about it. But by the time this video goes up, there should be a corresponding post over on GameWisdom.com. Now, Metroidvania design, as we've talked about before, is or has become very popular over the last 20 years. Of course, most famously beginning with Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which the creator said in an interview that he was inspired by Legend of Zelda, not, I think, Metroid for the design. But Metroidvania has stuck, and we can't really fight that anymore. Now, in the last post, or the last video, we've talked about kind of the major reasons why it's become so popular. For today, I want to focus on what I consider to be the three major foundations of Metroidvania gameplay. To quickly recap the previous video, Metroidvania design obviously is the act of playing a game where the player's character will grow and change over the course of gameplay. Now, the option to have an RPG-based system or leveling progression, that's optional. That part is not just limited to Metroidvania design. But what isn't is the ability for new upgrades or new mechanics to be unlocked over the course of playing. And this kind of progression model is very attractive to keep people playing, because not only does it introduce new power, which lets them feel stronger over the time, but it also will affect how the basic play is going, or the basic gameplay loop. You start out with just like running and jumping, and by the end you'll be wall jumping, slide jumping, teleporting jumping, shooting fireballs, and we could spend 20 minutes just naming various systems. But the point is, what I'm doing between the beginning, middle, and end of the game is vastly different. Now, when it comes to designing a really good Metroidvania, there are three key areas I think need to be touched on. The first is the idea of the foundation, or what you are starting at as the player or the character. A common mistake I see for a lot of first-time developers or first-time Metroidvania developers is starting the player off intentionally weak. I'm talking about, if this is an action-based Metroidvania, your base attack could be like a little stab. If it's a platformer one, you may not even start with the ability to run and jump. That's always a fun one. Or one of my favorites, you unlock the ability to hang on a ledge and pull yourself up. Now, the point of this is to basically drive home the point that you are weak starting out. But that's not where I think a good foundation is. When it comes to Metroidvania, you should start off the game relatively capable. I'm not saying you should be able to beat the final boss of the game within the first 20 minutes, but I should be able to basically get the most out of your core gameplay loop right from the get-go. The idea behind the upgrades and progression system is that I'm supposed to get better from there, not get to a point of competency, or fixing a problem that was originally put into the design, or a limitation. When I did my review and spotlight of the game After Death, I talked about this in terms of the combat. Your starting weapon is so short range that it's very easy for enemies to run into you or you to run into them and take free damage that way. And this is just a very annoying feature. But I'm willing to bet money that I'm going to at some point unlock either a longer range attack or a spell that shoots out a projectile, something again to compensate for that problem. But the issue is that this is a problem that the developer put in from the start, and you don't want to begin a game with issues like that. A really good case in point would be something like either Omega Strike or Hollow Knight, where I begin those games and the controls feel very responsive, I have no issue with maneuvering my character around, and as time goes on, I get better from there. And speaking about getting better from there, let's talk about the upgrades, which this kind of philosophy we could spend the next 15 to 20 minutes on easily. But the upgrade system of a Metroidvania title is the hallmark of the design. Without it, you don't have a Metroidvania. So for anyone watching this who's a fan of Dark Souls, no, Dark Souls is not a Metroidvania. No matter how much you like it, it's not going to get that tag. going back to what I was saying a few minutes ago, the beginning, middle, and end of a Metroidvania should play differently based on what upgrades I have. Now, when it comes to an upgrade system, we typically see two kinds. You have stat or incremental based upgrades, as in more health, do more damage, more special meter, and so on. And then you have the actual system or mechanic upgrades. The ability to double jump, wall jump, hover, new weapons, swimming. Again, we can go as far as you want in terms of coming up with clever and unique systems here. And you are as only limited by your imagination and the lore of the game. I've seen Metroidvania titles that have done so much a spin, you've now unlocked the ability to double jump. It could be, shooting a blast of air out of your legs, or you're growing wings and they flap. Again, it's just crazy all the options you have. But these upgrades are instrumental not only to the progression, but also to the power curve of Metroidvania-based design. And another major point that I think some developers tend to miss is that the best Metroidvanias integrate these upgrades into all aspects of gameplay. In the post, and as we've talked about before, lesser Metroidvanias will introduce upgrades that are simply used as keys, as in they have no purpose outside of a single utility. For instance, if I gain firepower, and all it does is let me melt an ice door, and I can't use it in combat, that would be a key. For instance, in After Death, one of the first upgrades I get is a dash that either lets me dash forward or back. And while this can be useful in combat, it cannot be combined with any other upgrade that I have. Once I unlock, for instance, I can't do it in the air, I don't carry the momentum, so I can't dash and then jump to increase my distance. When I transform into like a little spider guy, I can't dash to speed that up. And that's not good. Like I said, some of the best Metroidvanias will integrate everything together. So, for instance, with the dash, like I just said, I gain the dash, and then if I jump while I'm dashing, that momentum carries over. Or, if I gain the ability to dash, maybe I can do it in the air. In Hollow Knight, for instance, all your various movement-based upgrades become integrated into the environmental puzzle solving and platforming. So by the end of the game, you are double jumping into a dash, to wall jump off a wall, to dash into another, to dash through a gap, to then quickly double jump after the dash to get around an obstacle. And again, it works. Because everything is being integrated together, you are seeing firsthand just how much of a difference it is between playing the game at the start versus playing it at the end. And again, you can have these upgrades become integrated into each other, even if they are simply weapons as well. Because you can have those weapons basically allow you to get through earlier fights easier, break through walls you weren't supposed to originally, and again, just make you feel like things are growing. And another major part about Metroidvania design, the last part we'll talk about, is the level or environmental design. Because this is another part that is very hard to get right for first-time developers. Metroidvania-based games kind of occupy this very weird niche of being linear in the sense that I need to do A to get to B to get to C, but are still non-linear by the fact that there's usually multiple paths to get around, multiple places to explore, and of course backtracking to find upgrades and stuff that you either missed or you couldn't get in the first place. And designing the levels of a Metroidvania require a very keen grasp of the player's abilities at any given point. Like I said in the last part, the upgrades change how the player responds from beginning to end, but the environment has to reflect that as well. One of the things that you'll see commonly in Metroidvania titles is as you get further in, or specifically whenever you gain an upgrade that basically gets you through a door, or we could just say a metaphorical door, you'll find that the next area will basically have those upgrades now integrated in the design. So, let's say I gain the upgrade to do a short dash, and the short dash lets me clear a very small gap of spikes that I can't jump over. Well, once I've done that, moved to the next level, I'm going to find that specific obstacle and more like it, now a part of the common design. It's what we talked about in a video on action-based design, and how many games will introduce lieutenants or higher class enemies as mini-bosses or bosses, who are then folded into the normal routine later in the game. And this is again to promote the progression curve, and to show to the player that things are getting harder and will require a greater test of their skill. Now, another point about good Metroidvania design has to do with secrets and backtracking. When it comes to hiding secrets, or again the stat-based upgrades, they come in two flavors. There are those that are just literally hidden to the environment, as in, a false corner, or a false piece of the ceiling, or a fake door, or a fake wall you walk through. And then there are upgrades that are just literally put in plain sight, but you can't reach it yet. One of the most famous examples is, of course, you have an upgrade that's just right here, but you can't jump that high. But when you get your double jump, then of course you can do it. And when it comes to designing a Metroidvania, you have to have these little carrots on the sticks to motivate the player to keep going, and this also acts as a secondary form of progression. In case the player gets stuck at a tough boss, maybe they can go back and get some of those health upgrades they missed, or those attack up upgrades. That wasn't easy to say right there, but you get the point. Now, the other aspect when it comes to level design is you want to cut back or cut down on mindless backtracking, as in, if we have these 2 points here and the path between them is the same every time, I don't want to keep going back and forth between these two 15, 20 times throughout a play. Like I said, when it comes to Metroidvania design, things should change from beginning to end. And that also means the path or how you get through these levels should change as well. And you'll see this in a lot of Metroidvanias, that they'll design rooms that have essentially the normal or hard way to get through, and then they'll have an easier or just a complete bypass as you're either coming back or you have a better system. So for instance, in Metroid or Super Metroid, once you get the dash or understand how you can dash, stop for a second, then you do that super dash across, you can use that to skip a lot of the rooms. And that was made very much prominently use of in speedruns. Or getting a weapon that cuts through certain walls, you can design an area that the main path is like down here, and then once you get the ability to shoot through the walls, you just go up here and you just bypass the entire challenge. And that's the point. If I've, gone through a very hard section, I've completely gone through it, I don't want to do that again and again and again. Give me other ways to get around, or simply let me just get around or skip it as a shortcut. And this is why for larger Metroidvania titles, not only will they have multiple pass-through levels and multiple ways to explore, but they'll typically feature a fast travel system. As in, we find a teleporter, it takes me from here to here, or there to there, and so on. And the point again is, I don't want to repeat things that I've already done. As I said at the start, many Metroidvania-based games don't feature RPG systems, and because of that, fighting common enemies is simply used as a roadblock. So, I don't want to have to fight enemies if I don't have to. So, if I've already gone through these parts, then reward me by the fact to let me skip them. And it also acts as another form of progression, with the map, being filled in, more ways of getting around, and so on. So for those of you watching this, we'll end things here, and my questions for you for tonight are, what are some great examples of Metroidvania titles that you enjoyed for their progression model? And to make things a little trickier, Castlevania, Hollow Knight, Axiom Verge don't count. So give me some more obscure ones. And then on the flip side of that, can you think of some Metroidvania-based games that didn't work, that messed up on one or more of these three foundations? And again, it is not easy to do. And a quick, really good example that I want to touch on is Guacamelee, that the upgrades not only become integrated into the platforming, but many of them will integrate into combat as well and actually allow you to grow your combo trees. So that's basically a way of getting a 2-for-1 bonus. But with all that said, thank you so much for watching today's Critical Thought. If you're new, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let me know if there are any topics you'd like me to cover in a future video. And check back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back around 10 Eastern for regular streaming. If you'd like to suggest games for me to cover or topics to talk about, let me know in the comments below. For a collection of my writings as well as weekly podcasts on design, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the Game Wisdom Patreon, you can find us on there on patreon.com/gwbycer. $1 will get you into our private Discord channel where we talk game topics and more. $5 will get you voting privileges for any major event, including the Saturday Night Grab Bag, Patreon-funded goals, and more. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy more videos here on the Game Wisdom YouTube channel.